This is the RPG Pundit, the final boss in Internet Shitlords. And, well, I told you so. They all called me crazy, and, well, maybe I am, right? But I was right. I'm most often right. And once again, I got it right this time. Not too long ago, I had predicted that this was the next logical step in the SJW nonsense regarding D&D and tabletop RPG play. And lo and behold, it's exactly how it turned out. I said, I think on this channel, but also possibly on Inappropriate Characters, which everybody should also subscribe to if they're not already subscribed. And if you're not subscribed to this channel, please subscribe to this channel and like this video and share it everywhere, especially where it'll piss people off. But what I'd said was that the next thing that they were going to start arguing, that the SJWs were going to start arguing, is that you shouldn't be allowed, that gamers shouldn't be allowed to play a character that isn't of their own race. And that's exactly what has happened now. So here's the story, right? You've got Matt Mercer. It involves Matt Mercer again, our old friend. I've done a large number of videos ago about this guy. Somehow he gets around. And Matt was, because he's the big live streaming gaming star, he had deigned to guest star on some kind of small stream and for some kind of RPG. And when he got there, he was assigned a character, and that character that was assigned to him was Asian. And, they were starting the process, and when they were starting, in the live chat, a bunch of people rose up in profound shock, objection, and a sense of deep, completely unmitigated self-righteous offendedness, and said, oh, how can you do that? Oh, blah, 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 right? And so Matt Mercer, always being a man of principles who is guided only by his own inner sense of morality and definitely not a guy that's desperate to follow whatever the crowd wants, actually quit the live stream, quit the game, because and then later said, I had no idea, I'm sorry, I had no idea that I was going to be given an Asian character to play. Oh my god. And he posted on Twitter something like, it's very clear that it's not appropriate for people to play characters of a different racial background than themselves, especially in sensitive gaming contexts of like historical gaming and things like that, right? And here's here's the kicker, number one, right? Matt Mercer, you might know this, if you've ever watched Critical Role or seen his photo, is a white man, right? And that, of course, was the source of the problem. But the guy that was running the game is a black guy, and he didn't think there was any problem with this, at least not at the time. I'm not sure. I've heard somewhere that he has since recanted and recognized his error or some shit like that, right? But at the time, he thought it was fine, right? So the person who was offended, I'm sure that most of the people in the comments were offended, were white people, and Matt Mercer, a white person, was offended, and he did not follow the cue of course, the black guy. He followed the cue of the, white left, right? But are you ready for kicker number two? And this is not really relevant to the bigger issue, but it is relevant, and it says a lot about Matt Mercer. The next day, like literally barely 24 hours after all of this incident happened, Matt Mercer announced with great joy that he is doing, because he's a voice actor, right? He's doing a voice acting job for an Asian character. And he thought there's nothing wrong with that, right? And he posted like, that's perfectly fine, right? So apparently the hypocrisy, hypocrisy is clearly a word that he doesn't really, he's never come across it in his voice acting career, I guess. But apparently he doesn't see any hypocrisy in the fact that he thinks that not only should he not play an Asian character in an RPG, right, but nobody else should be allowed to if they're not Asians, right? But there's no problem at all with him portraying an Asian character as a voice actor. Excuse me. Getting my yerba mate ready there. So yeah, that's the story from Matt Mercer's end. But the thing is, it's not really about Matt Mercer. He was the trigger of it. But what's the story is that SJWs all over Twitter and many other places have now been declaring that you really shouldn't be allowed to ever play a character that isn't your own race. And some people, when I tried to point this out to some people that this is happening, there were a lot of gamers that didn't understand. They're like, wait, but you know what? So like nobody should play a dwarf or something like that. But that's an issue. It's not really that, right? Because we're not talking about race like the character's race. We're talking fundamentally about skin color here, right? And obviously when they say no one should play a character not of their own race, what they really mean is especially white-skinned people should not get to play characters that have other types of skin tones, right? So I suppose that what that means is, I mean, orcs are right out for white people because, you know, the white leftist SJWs believe that orcs are black people. I don't understand why. I guess it's because they're inherently racist and are projecting that on everyone else. But so obviously no orc, you couldn't play an orc if you're a white person, right? But if you're a, you know, if you're a white person, you could probably play a white dwarf or a white elf or a white halfling. But you couldn't play one of those races there of a different skin tone. And you can't play any other type of human besides a white human, right? This is their notion. This is their tiny little world where melanin matters so very, very much, right? And it doesn't matter that it's, you know, in most cases you're talking about fantasy races, but it shouldn't really matter regardless, right? Because it's a ridiculous and fruitless argument to suggest that the racial experience is greater than the human experience. The fundamental experience is the human experience. It's the experience of being a human, right? And the reason that we can sympathize with the legends and myths, and again, here's a problem. The leftists, they don't understand. They're incapable. I think that they're literally mentally unable to understand how myth works or how symbol works, right? In the classical sense. This is beyond them because they've been so destroyed by postmodernist philosophy that all that they can understand, they've replaced that with the concept of narrative, right? So there's no real way for them to connect to the fundamental human experience. Then nothing is real, nothing is true, right? But this is why symbol and myth are so powerful, is that they transcend space and time. They transcend location. They transcend race or ethnicity, right? We can listen to the myth or to the legend of another culture and encounter the same fundamental human story that we find in our own culture. So this is something that is actually, it's beyond any concept of any racial experience. And really the concept of racial experience that the white left have is so tiny, right? It's the concept of basically a very American experience, and in some cases, like kind of the experience of the colonial experience in Africa, maybe, right? And that's basically it, right? Like it's just such a limited view of the world, right? So, but this is what they want to impose on you, right? And so obviously the emphasis right now is on live streams. Right, is that if you're doing a live stream, you absolutely shouldn't portray a character of any other race than your own. But of course, keep note, right, that this means, well, if your group is a gaming group of white people, then you've got another serious problem because you're obviously also a white supremacist if you're not portraying other races. But you're not allowed to portray other races. You understand? So the whole point of this is to make it that whatever you're doing is fundamentally wrong, and you probably just shouldn't be allowed to play games at all anyways, because they don't want that, right? What they really want is the destruction on the small scale, what they want is the destruction of D&D and the gaming hobby. On the large scale, they want the complete deconstruction of Western civilization, right? So what they want fundamentally is for you to end up in a gulag or in a mass grave, right? That's where you belong, not running a game and definitely not running a live stream. If the DM is a white guy, then that means that he can only portray white NPCs, but that means obviously that anyone who's playing with him is, a member of the alt-right, obviously. So this is a fantastic catch-22 that they've developed for people doing live streaming. It's meant to be exactly what it looks like, basically totalitarian Stalinist oppression. It has nothing to do with any kind of racial suffering. It's just nonsense. It's abject nonsense that these people are pushing to push forward this agenda of repression. And the evidence of it is in the fact that the first strike was against a black DM, right? It was there. It doesn't really matter. Like, they're never championing the people that they claim to champion. That's just nonsense, right? This is absolutely, and any hardcore real Marxist who listens to me right now is going to agree. Any real genuine old school Marxist would know that Marx himself would define what the modern SJW movement does as a bourgeois anti-revolutionary movement that actually subverts the real war, which is the class war, in favor of creating this racial division that in fact allows the oligarchy to get a stronger control by manipulating the working class, right? I know it sounds like a lot of fancy words, but if you studied your Marx, you know that's what he's saying. And in this case, it's right. It's exactly what they're doing. This is not a movement. They say it's a movement to impose socialism, but it's not. It's a movement to impose totalitarianism, which is a bit different, right? It doesn't really, because they don't actually care at all about the working class. They like, a lot of the old school communists and whatnot, they started with a certain kind of ideal, an idealism. They actually believed that they were going to do the workers' revolution, and that what they were doing was for the good of the workers. Some of them, right? I mean, there was that was the general goal, and then it always ended up going to crap because the fundamental concept is flawed, right? But these guys today, the postmodernists and later, basically said, screw that. What we want is power. We want power to impose our particular agenda, and our agenda, and it is explicitly presented by guys like Derrida, is the complete destruction of Western civilization, and that's their agenda. It has nothing to do with helping people. It has nothing to do with helping people of other races. It has nothing to do with fighting racism. It has to do with controlling every detail of your life and making you helpless to their effort to strip away everything that they can of Western civilization, right? So yeah, that's the basic story. Right, and I guess that we all know what they would think of my historical games, right? Like, Arrows of Indra. In Arrows of Indra, you literally can't play a white man. I mean, I guess in theory, you could play some kind of Caucasian savage that somehow makes his way to the Barada kingdoms, But like, this is Arrows of Indra is not in any way a game that trivializes another culture or abuses another culture in any way, or misappropriates another culture. It is based completely on the fantastic and epic myth of the Mahabharata, right? And so it is absolutely Indian authentic in the same sense that Lion and Dragon is medieval authentic, and it's a game where you're going to play somebody, unless you are Indian, East Indian, you're going to be playing a different culture. But it's a culture that if you learn the lore and the context of the world, you will be able to understand, because the Mahabharata is a human story. It's a story about cousins that get into a fight over a succession. It's about love. It's about, a guy who is this hero that's trying to do the right thing, but he's screwed by the circumstances of his birth. It's about, and it's about religion too. I mean, there's a living God in it, right? Krishna. So there's, and it's all stuff that is very, very relatable to anyone who's looked at other myths, right? In other parts of the world. And you see us in China, you see us in Europe, you see us in the African myths, you see this in what survives of the American myths, of the civilizations of Central and South America. These stories are are what unites us as human beings, and that's why they have to strip it away. That's why they want to avoid, they want to erase history, first of all, so that's why historical role-playing should be out, and they want to erase myth, because myth proves the lie of this idea that we're fundamentally irreconcilable, right? That we can't possibly understand each other, right? And so that therefore we must strictly regulate and control the races, which is what they want. Because the SJWs are the only actual racists that matter that are around today, right? Nobody else is racist except them. You've got, some Yahoo in Arkansas maybe in a clan robe, but that guy doesn't matter. He has no power, right? These guys have enormous power, and they're the actual racists. And, well, this is mostly a video for me to say, I told you so. That this is what was coming, right? And obviously, I think that it's probably for a lot of people a step too far. But you're still going to see the wokerati that are, all the people who signed that list of, game designers are all voting for Biden and you better sign this too, right? The ones that did that list, they're going to try to force everybody to also accept this. And, it's nonsense. It's just complete nonsense. Anyways, I guess that's it for today. If you like this video, again, please share it, please subscribe. And if you want to support me, well, if you want to throw cash at me, I've got a Patreon, I've got a PayPal, and that's always welcome. But if you want to support my products, then, pick up some of my games, right? That's a good way to show your support. You can pick up my full-blown games like Lion and Dragon or Arrows of Indra, but you can also pick up my PDF series, RPG Pundit Presents. We've got 103 issues out. Very, very soon, we're also going to have out The World of the Last Sun, which is going to be the world book with a lot of cool material in it of my Gonzo gaming setting that is the basis of my almost 8-year-long DCC campaign. And I think that'll be fun for anyone who likes weird fantasy / Gonzo style gaming. Yeah, it's coming out really soon. I think definitely before the end of the year. I shouldn't have said definitely because that's almost jinxing it, isn't it? But it's coming. It's coming very, very soon. So keep your eyes open for that. And anyways, the RPG Pundit Presents series, 103 issues. Every single one of them has got material that you can use in your games. And they range from 99 cents to like $4.99. So check those out. It's a good way. It's like you're buying me a coffee, but you're also getting something for yourself. And that's important. Also, guys, keep in mind, next weekend we have, I'll probably mention it again because I'll probably do another video before then, I certainly hope. We'll have another episode of Inappropriate Characters coming up. I think it is. It's not this weekend. It's next weekend. And be sure to check that out too. And I guess that's everything for today. Currently smoking Lorenzetti Egg, plus it's there somewhere. Argento Natural.